Hey YouTube, this is City Prepping. In this video, I want to discuss 7 prepper tips for teenagers, and a lot of these things that we're going to discuss can also be applied to anybody that's starting out in prepping, or really for anybody in prepping in general, so stick around. You can show your support for this channel by clicking the like button, sharing on social media, providing feedback in the comments section, and don't forget as a subscriber to click the bell icon below to get updates. Enjoy the video. So the reason I decided to make this video is because I often get a lot of comments on my videos. I see it in a lot of prepper forums that I visit. I especially enjoy the Reddit forums for preppers, and I see this question come up a lot. And the question usually revolves around the issue of, hey, I'm a teenager, I'm trying to get into prepping, I don't really know where to start, or something along the lines of, I really want to do prepping, but my parents are against it, they think I'm crazy. Or something around the line, along the lines of, hey, I want to get into firearms, but I don't even know, how to start. What do I do? I want to protect myself. And what I'd like to do in this video is kind of address some of those issues and talk about it, because again, it's a question I see come up a lot in the forums and on my own channel. So my first piece of advice is focus on skills over gear. What do I mean by that? Well, it's really easy when you get into prepping, especially if you've seen enough prepping videos, you'll see there's definitely a lot of focus on gear. And I'll be honest, I fall into that trap myself sometimes. I enjoy gear, but at the end of the day, I realize what will be most important is if there is a situation, if there is an emergency, if something comes up, having the right skills will be very important. Gear, while it's very important, it serves a great use and a great purpose. It does help a lot, but at the end of the day, you want to have those hard skills. What kind of skills am I talking about? When I was really young, I got involved with Boy Scouts, and I'll talk about this in another point. But I learned things like camping. Some of the things I wish I'd learned early on is gardening. My father used to do a lot of gardening, but I never really got involved with that much. And it's something I'm trying to acquire now, a skill I'm trying to get. I'm actually beginning to learn things like canning. I mean, they're kind of boring, but at the end of the day, having these skills are things that you can do as a teenager. And these are things that you can carry over to later in life. Things like learning how to regulate your finances. And again, that's another point we'll dive into in just a little more. But again, one of the things that you have to be really careful about is don't get caught up in the hype. Don't get caught up in focusing on gear. There's a lot of really great gear out there that's being marketed to the prepper community. A lot of stuff that you'll see with Molly on it. And, it's really easy to be like, oh, wow, that's so cool looking. But really at the end of the day, is that going to be the most important thing you need? I don't really think so. So again, if I would encourage you with anything to start off with is focus on skills. Another thing is, again, one of the questions that often comes up a lot, and it kind of ties into this, focus on skills over acquiring things, is I often hear the question about firearms. And maybe this could be its own separate point, but I'll kind of bundle it into this first point. Firearms, while they have their place, and I think in the aspect of security and prepping, again, don't let that be your focus. Firearms is something that you can do later in life. As you become an adult, I don't even know what the legal age in different states are, for acquiring a firearm. But again, while I encourage you to pick up a firearm if you can, if you can have your father or your mother or somebody in your family teach you and train you, I think that's a great thing. But a lot of times I hear in these questions that are presented on my channel is, hey, what do I do as far as self-defense? Well, there's a lot of things that are, alternatives to firearms, for example, martial arts. The end goal is not to, focus on firearms, acquiring a lot of them, but rather, again, acquire skills. The second thing that I would recommend you really focus on is physical fitness. When I was young, I really began to get active in different programs, whether it was football, cross country, weightlifting, track. These are different things that I began to get involved with, and there's habits that I still continue to this day. I still enjoy weightlifting. I still enjoy cardiovascular, and I'm really glad I established those early on. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, when they begin to develop a sedentary lifestyle, especially when they're young, unfortunately, that habit carries over to later in life. When I was young, again, I'm dating myself here, but electronics weren't as big of a thing when I was growing up. It was, you maybe had an Atari and that was about it. So I know in this day and age, there's more of there's a lot more things to do on electronics. And unfortunately, a lot more people live a lot more sedentary lifestyles. They sit around a lot. And I know that's a habit that you can develop very early on, and it can be problematic later in life. Do things like, hey, floss. I know that sounds hilarious, but, take care of your teeth. Take care of your knees. Unfortunately, I beat my knees up when I was really young. I had a really bad motorcycle accident years ago, and it's something that still haunts me to this day. But If I could go back to my younger self and say, hey, do these things, I would really encourage myself to take care of myself better growing up. When you're young, you're bulletproof, but unfortunately, as you get older, things start catching up with you. So take care of yourself. You'll definitely appreciate it. And how that ties into prepping, well, if you can't take care of yourself, if you're in bad shape, if something happens, if there's some kind of a catastrophe, you're really going to be at a huge disadvantage. Tip number 3 would be to get involved with something like Boy Scouts. I'm very fortunate that I had a great troop when I was growing up. A lot of my closest friends all got involved with Boy Scouts, and so did I. And we had a scoutmaster and several assistant scoutmasters that were just incredible guys. We had a great time. Those are some of the best memories I have looking back. And the thing about Boy Scouts is a lot of the skills, honestly, that I learned in Boy Scouts are what kind of led me into prepping. Learning how to take care of myself in the outdoors, learning camping, how to start a fire, how to learn how to cook over fire, learning how to, use a compass and a map, learning how to climb mountains. So many things I learned early on are things that, if anything were to happen and things got tough, those are skills that I can fall back on. Now, obviously, just running out to the mountains is not going to be my plan of action, but having those hard skills that I developed early on, I think are so important. If you can get involved with some kind of activity or program that gets you out, gets you active, learning these skills, I think it's going to be something that's going to be a huge advantage for you later on, learning these survival skills as you mature in prepping. My 4th tip would be learning how to regulate your finances. I did a video a few months ago talking about how to survive a financial crisis. I'll put a link in the cards up here in the corner, and you can check out that video. But I was very fortunate growing up. My father was very conservative financially, and those are some of the things that he kind of passed to me. And it has served me really well, even as I've grown and learning how to run a business, how to take care of a family. And you may ask, how does that tie into prepping, regulating your finances? Well, not all catastrophes that happen will be just in regards to natural disasters or some amazing, or some crazy situation like North Korea attempting to nuke us. We live in a country that has begun to run up a huge amount of debt. If you look at what's happening in Venezuela, it's not out of the scope or out of the realm of possibilities of things that could happen in our own nation, seeing a financial collapse. While I hope that never happens, having your finances in line, learning how to regulate your finances, learning how to not live in debt, living payment to payment will be very important. It has served me very well to learn how to save up, how to prepare financially. There's been a lot of times in my own life where things happen, and just having that knowledge, how to control my finances and having things in order, it has served me really well, and I would encourage you to do the same. There's great books out there. I'll put some links in the description section below. One of the books that has helped me a lot is the Training from Dave Ramsey. He does a lot on financial, one book in particular called Financial Peace, does a lot of training on, learning how to control your finances. And that's something I would encourage you to definitely learn. It's a skill that will serve you very well. Tip number 5, learning the value of hard work. Now, this one is, it's something that, again, I was very fortunate at a young age to learn that, no matter what, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to push through to finish whatever I started. Why am I bringing this up? How does this relate to prepping? Well, prepping, the lifestyle of prepping, again, it's learning how to prepare for things that may come up, emergencies, natural disasters, things that may be out of our control, whether that's man-made or natural. And those that are willing to work hard, that are willing to push through in a situation, they'll have a huge advantage. We live in a day and age, and again, I'm not trying to get preachy here, but we do live in a day and age where we have a lot of conveniences, where things, we live in a day of prosperity, of peace like never before in the history of the world. While it's easy to look at the news and see so many bad things, I mean, you have to look back not that far to see how difficult things have been in our history. I have a neighbor that's 80 years old, and to listen to her tell stories about growing up during World War II and the sacrifices they had to make and the hard work that she had to put in to do things, it's really interesting. It's not something that you really hear a lot in this day and age. So on that note, to encourage you with the aspect of hard work, learn to be a person that follows through and to commit and do what you say you're going to do. Again, it's a frame of mind, it's a habit, it's a way of life. And it will serve you well not only in the context of prepping, but just life in general.
learning how to be a person that is a hard worker. It's easy so many times when things get tough to just give up. And again, tying this into prepping, I can only imagine if there was a situation that happened in my area. Again, I live in Southern California. It's not too that much of a far-fetched ideal to say, hey, what if an earthquake hit my area and things get difficult? It would be easy for me to want to give up or just to have someone else take care of me, but that's not going to happen. I've got a family, and learning these hard skills now, again, it will serve you well. Point number 6 would be don't get caught up in fear. Why do I say this? I see this in a lot of the forum postings. I see this in a lot of comments, again, from people that are teenagers that are saying, hey, I'm a teen, so many things are going bad, I'm afraid, how do I prepare? Don't get caught up in fear. I mean, again, you have to understand the context of the day and age we live in. Things have been much worse before in history, and people have learned how to endure and go through these situations. I grew up in the 80s, and there was a constant threat of nuclear war with Russia during the Cold War. And if there was ever a time, I think, to be afraid of really, the strong potential of nuclear war, I think that would have been the time. Again, I know what's going on in North Korea. I know that's a situation, a lot of saber rattling. But again, I've seen a lot worse growing up. And one of the things that was really easy as a child to do is get caught up in fear. And, I really had to catch myself, even to this day, not allowing myself to fall back on this. We live in a time where, again, there's never been a time of peace and prosperity like we're living in now. Enjoy it. Don't let fear eat you up. Fear is a really powerful and nasty thing, and it can cause people to do some really irrational things. But again, what I'm trying to say is learn more or less to be optimistic. Now, does that mean, bad things could never happen? No, I'm not saying that. Things can happen, and that's why we prep. But again, don't let that be your focus. Learn how to prep for what's most likely. That's what I do. Again, I live in earthquake territory. I live in Southern California. When the earthquake finally hits, we're being warned constantly about it. I think I'll be in a pretty good position. I think for me, that's the most likely scenario of bad things that will happen probably in my lifetime. There is a potential for others, but if I were to put my money on it, I would say probably one of the worst things I'll probably see is living, through an earthquake that could be pretty devastating. But nonetheless, I prepare for it, and I'm trying to be as ready as I can. But it's not something I live in constant fear about. Again, I choose not to allow myself to, constantly fixate on that. And I would encourage you to do the same. Enjoy your life, especially if you're young. You've got a great future ahead of you. Again, we live in a time, in a day and age like never before, with peace and prosperity. And be thankful for that. And again, be optimistic. My last point, number 7, is work with your parents and not against them. And why do I say that? Well, a lot of times the comments that I see, again, in the comment section or on different forums, they usually, again, point out that, I want to do prepping, but my parents don't want me to, or they think I'm crazy. I could totally see a parent's perspective because, again, I am a parent. I have children, while they're not teens yet. They're close to it. I think I would get a little weirded out if I wasn't a prepper and one day they came to me and said, hey, I want to be a prepper, because the stigma, unfortunately, with the prepper community is that it is crazy. There is a lot of craziness, and unfortunately, it's a self-inflicted wound, I think, because there is a lot of kind of, far out, conspiracy-based, yada, yada, yada. I try to present myself as a level-headed prepper, and I hope this channel conveys that. But again, back to the main point, learn how to work with your parents on this. Again, I wouldn't, by any means try to, recommend being deceptive. Don't do that. That's just, again, for so many reasons, that's wrong. But, if you're interested in survivalism, if you're interested in learning bushcraft, those are things that could be fun to work with your parents, learning how to, do these activities with your parents. And a lot of times, again, I hear in these forum postings and in the comments section of, hey, I want to store up food and water, but my parents don't think I should. Again, you could ease into it with just simply showing what FEMA even recommends, having a 3-day food and water supply. Again, you could point out things like what we're seeing in Houston with, asking, are we ready if something were to happen like that here locally? Do we have food and water if there was a major disaster? It's things that you can just think of and present in a practical light. It doesn't have to be far-fetched like, I'm afraid this is going to happen, some major event. And again, if your parents are concerned, well, that's their job. Their job is to take care of your well-being. And I would encourage you to, again, work with them and not against them. Deception, it just never pays off in the end. Your parents are there because they love you and they want to take care of you, hopefully. And so, again, use this as an opportunity to, go out and camp with them, develop skills with them. I think it could be something that could be really fun. And as my children grow older, it's something I look forward to working with them on as well. So in conclusion, while this is not the typical format I do on my channel, this is a question, again, that I see come up time and time again. I thought I'd just create a quick video to kind of discuss some of these issues. And if any of you have advice for any teenagers, please provide that in the comment section below. Again, I always learn so much from your feedback. So again, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like or share on social media. And as always, be safe out there.